because we know Elliott, Allison, that organizational and partnership, that change as far as the people that are employed there, of may have indeed been another part of why Mercedes is successful, that personnel change. Wiry Supreme says, how did the firing and hiring of Ferrari team principal culture, has it had an impact on their long-term success? And do you see Charles Leclerc leaving due to instability within the organization?
Well, first of all, regarding the personnel changes at Mercedes and the successes they've had recently, look, everyone knows I'm a big James Allison fan. I love his work and his way of explaining things. He's one of the most articulate and smart people I know, but he's not Superman. I can assure you, many of the changes that you've seen in the current car design were actually approved of and signed off on under the watch of Mike Elliott. It is true that Mike Elliott's legacy at Mercedes is going to be the zero-pot design, but he, even before preseason testing or during preseason testing, had mentioned that there was a major upgrade coming to the design direction of the W14 that it was supposed to be in Imola. We didn't race in Imola, so we didn't see it. I imagine that would have been a great-looking car back then. But we can't universally blame Mike Elliott for all of Mercedes' problems, and we can't universally give credit to James Allison for fixing them to where they currently are, because there's a non-zero overlap there, number one, with their timing, and also it's a team effort. Everyone's kind of working together. So that's definitely one note I want to say about Mercedes and their personnel changes. Regarding Ferrari and their historical issues, I mean, their drought of championships that they're experiencing now is actually rivaling the length of time that they had before Schumacher joined. There's a long period of 20 years or something, or some extended period of time, or 15 years, I don't remember.
I think it's 15.
15 years, when they weren't winning anything for a very long time, and Michael Schumacher came and sort of raised them from this the depths of that mediocrity. And they're starting to approach that same time now, as far as championship droughts since Kimi Räikkönen's 2007 championship victory. So I mean, they're not there yet, but they're getting closer than anyone really wants. And they have engineering talent. They have so much data, but sometimes it feels like, and again, this is not I don't want to be overly generalizing here, but everyone seems to agree that there's a cultural issue with Ferrari, not an Italian culture, but a Ferrari culture.
Ferrari culture.
If that makes sense, there's definitely a distinction there, and I think Ferrari internally recognizes this, because this was one of the first, promotions to team principal that didn't come from inside the organization.
There you go with Fred Vasseur.
Domenicali, and we think about Arriva Bene, we think about Mattia Bonanno. I mean, these people were sort of in the organization, and in fact, Mattia was technical genius, one of their technical heads.
I was about to say Mattia. He was there for a while.
Mattia was there. He has some fun videos with Michael Schumacher I'll share with you later that are quite fun.
All right.
Just to give you a scale for how old it was. He had short hair at that time, so it was a totally different guy. But no, Mattia is a great engineer, and he's been around for a long time, and he was trying to do the best that he could with the team that he was heading. But ultimately, Ferrari seemed to think that they need to go in a new direction, and there are certain aspects of Vasseur's tenure that I think are refreshingly good. He's very funny, number one, which isn't a requirement of a team principal, but he's got a great sense of humor, but he's also very direct and very to the point, and seems to be willing to call a spade in most situations. I hope he's able to retain that. I hope he's able to admit when things aren't quite going correctly, because I'm starting to see a little bit of that old Ferrari culture creeping in, which I don't like, which is to say, for example, prior to the Barcelona upgrade being shown, Fred had said, well, this isn't a concept change. This isn't a fundamental change. But if you look at the actual, hardware that they brought to Barcelona, yes, there's some subjective definition of what defines a concept change, but it's a pretty big difference. I mean, the side pod shape is quite different, and the back end of it's also quite different. So I think that Ferrari is in a position where they're not dead in the water yet, but they're having a bit more struggles with their upgrade than I think they were anticipating. And as I said before, the Barcelona circuit, the Spanish GP, especially with the updated layout, was going to be a bit tough for them, because ironically enough, the F175 last year's car. Probably would have done better at this particular circuit. But I'm not saying that it's it's a global loss. What I'm suggesting is the specific areas of car performance that Ferrari decided to focus on for the SF23 versus the F175 are different. And a lot of that is actually reaction to Red Bull and their outrageous top speed last year. So, maybe you give up a little bit of downforce for the high-speed corners, but you gain some top end. One of the side effects of that could be tire wear. So it just seems to be something that they're dealing with. I think they also brought a new rear suspension to Barcelona. They're limited to the maximum changes they can make because they didn't have the cost to be able to make a whole new gearbox and everything, gearbox casing. But I think there's going to be some more changes coming along the line, and I haven't, given up on Ferrari at all. But regarding Leclerc, it's hard to believe how long he's been at that team. He's been there since 2019, and there will come a point where his assessment is that Ferrari won't get it together fast enough. Maybe they'll get it together, but not in a time when he's there. I could understand the idea of him going to another team, but realistically, where would that be?
Where's he gonna go?
Red Bull, despite their slight asymmetry in driver performances, is a very strong team. When Max doesn't win, Checo has a good chance to win most of the time. Mercedes has, hands down, the best driver lineup on the grid. They are fighting each other for the wins. If they get a competitive car, they're going to run the table. Aston Martin is kind of a wild card right now because they're really running a 1.5 man team, unfortunately, it seems. So I don't think it's likely that Lance Stroll will be leaving that team, but the conversations are starting to get loud.
They're getting louder and louder.
They're getting louder over time, that at some point this inherent conflict between, well, let's just call it what it is, it's nepotism.
There you go.
And financial and competitive success is going to be an issue. Now, to be clear, Lance Stroll is not a Nicholas Latifi. He is not a Nikita Mazepin. He's a good driver. He used to be a great driver for a midfield team. It's just that Aston Martin's progress and how good that car is shown to be is starting to make him the weaker link in that situation. So,
and what did you say about drivers? You said it very well before.
They do make the difference, and they can. Again, everyone likes to think the classic example of this is Lewis Hamilton and the most dominant eras of Mercedes. Everyone would just dismiss all of that performance and saying, "Oh, he just had the best car; he'd be miles ahead." First of all, if you had the best car, you'd win every race weekend if there was no retirements, and that never happened. Pace fluctuates inherently, but you have to be able to unlock it. There is a language to each of these cars that requires you to be able to speak it, to get the tires in the window and the brakes in the right temperature, and to be able to actually optimize a full race weekend. It's not easy, and the driver does make the difference.
Thanks for watching another episode of Wolfpack Performance. Don't forget to check out some of my other content on Formula One and motorsports topics. Like, share, subscribe, and we go live on the weekends. See you soon.